All right, folks, welcome back to the next part in the BrightSky weather app series. I believe this will be the last part where we will set up the paywall for our subscriptions that we started configuring in the last video. We'll talk about also how we can selectively hide this daily forecast section, since that's what we're gating behind the paywall. And we'll talk about some of the best practices along the way. Smash that like button if you made it this far. Say hello in the comments. I always love hearing from you guys, and let's continue onwards. So two things prior to jumping over here in the dashboard to set up the paywall that I do want to call out that we did not cover in the last video. So in the dashboard here, we skipped adding the shared secret because I could not find for the life of me where it had moved to an Abstract Connect. And I finally found it after ending that video, and it's actually in your app information screen. So if you go to the app information tab here on the left-hand side and scroll all the way down, Apple actually did move it here, your app specific shared secret, I believe a year or two ago. So I did go ahead and click into that, generate a secret, and I came back here into the RevenueCat dashboard and I did add this here. The other thing that we glossed over that I already took care of is if we scroll down, there's this drop down for StoryKit testing framework. And if you open this up, you'll see that there's an option here to add a public certificate file that I've already added. So the way you generate this to hook up the StoryKit configuration testing for RevenueCat is by going to your configuration file. In the toolbar at the top, hitting editor, and there's an option here to save public certificate. Now I saved it to my desktop. You can save it wherever you want. It's a certificate that you do need to upload to RevenueCat so you can actually test with the StoryKit configuration. I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again here. All right, so let's continue with setting up our paywall here. And this is what I think is kind of the extra fun part. So let's go into our controller where we initially did set up our button, this little crown thing at the top right, where we're going to click it and see a paywall with our options. Now, we haven't actually configured a paywall yet, but let's write some code because what you can do here is pretty interesting. So we will come up here and we are going to import RevenueCat UI, which actually it looks like I took care of in a prior video. And in this function here, did-temp upgrade, we're going to actually create the paywall view controller. We're going to set its delegate to self, and we're going to say, hey, go ahead and present this view controller with an animation. Now, because we're setting the delegate to self, we do need to also conform to it. I will do that in an extension down here to keep things nice and clean. Paywall view controller delegate is what you're looking for, and I don't believe any of the methods in here are required. So if you build, you should be able to successfully compile. If you come into here, you'll see that there are two functions that are declared. There's did finish purchasing with customer info, and there's did finish restoring with customer info for new purchases and restorations respectively. So we're going to say did finish purchasing and did finish restoring. So let's actually print some stuff out here. So we're gonna say purchased, and we'll interpolate inside of this string the customer info, and in here we will say restored with customer info. So let's hit Command B. Let's see if we're going to get yelled at. It looks like we are getting yelled at. Let's see why we're getting yelled at. It's because it can't resolve the symbols, because in addition to importing the RevenueCat UI, you do need to import the RevenueCat framework as well here. So now that we've got that, let's actually give this a build and run, and let's see what happens even though we never set up a paywall here, and just click on that crown. So let me click into paywalls here. You'll see there's no paywall configured for this offering, but let's click this and let's see what happens. Well, if you look at that, we already see something. Well, we see a scary warning at the top, an error saying, hey, there's no configuration done for the paywall for this offering. But what's nice is we do see a placeholder of this really nice looking UI with our two packages already offered here. So we have our Pro Monthly at $5 a month, and then we have the yearly for $29.99 a month. And also it basically does the math on that, and it basically shows the user, hey, that's actually $249 a month, basically driving users to purchase the yearly plan, which is what we strive to do. Now, it would be a little nicer if we can configure all of this and perhaps even have some options about what the screen looks like. So let's actually do that. So once more, I'll call out this is in beta. So, asterisk with things changing, but this is all functional and it's looking pretty great. So we're gonna work through this. So we'll go to the paywall here. We'll hit add paywall, and you come to this screen, and being someone who's been working with iOS for 10 plus years, the fact that you can do this on a web UI and have it translate into, your application without having to build, multiple variants of the screen yourself and actually, A/B test it is pretty amazing. So you have 3 different options to select from here. So just to run through these, this first one is pretty straightforward. It shows you basically one package offering. This is, a simple screen. It's pretty common. It's well researched, I imagine, and used by many apps. The second one here is similar to what we've got going on in the default screen, where we can show multiple packages that we offer. This is probably what works best for us. And this third one is also something that's pretty commonly used in apps to curb the anxiety of users of what the timeline is for something like a free trial. So it has, today you're going to start this, day 7 you're going to get a reminder about the subscription, and then day 14 you'll automatically get subscribed. And it lets you know that you can cancel anytime. So I imagine there's going to be more screens to come is my guess here, but let's select this one and let's see what we can go about doing in here. So I'll also call out that there's some documentation for all of this available here for paywalls. So paywalls have, of course, the editor to set up the paywall. You can, of course, present the paywall with the code we just implemented. And in terms of displaying the paywall, you can also use things like variables, and there's a list of them somewhere in here in the documentation to dynamically basically show pieces of information. Let's see if I can find where that is. Anyhow, I will definitely be linking to all of these docs in the description of these videos since they're very thorough and they're quite interesting to run through. But without that all being said, let's actually get through all this. So we can try using a variable within your template values. So that's actually called out right here. We can use images. We can use our main content. There's quite a few things you can do here. So let's open up our image. We can specify a background image, which might be a little much. For the icon, I actually brought in a weather logo. So let me upload that weather icon here, and you can see it updated it at the top. There's quite a bit you can do. You've got your main content here. For your main content, you can specify, what color you would want your main content to leverage. So let's do something that's like a bit of a bluish color. Now you, of course, have a background color as well. So if you want to go for something like a darker looking theme, you can do that here. You should be mindful of your text color, of course. Now, I will also mention that what's really great about these screens is that they do handle things like localization and, in terms of your display, right? Your light mode, your dark mode, you can use variables and see that here. So this is what this would look like in dark mode. So it's really nice that all of this is thought through and taken care of, and you don't need to worry about, if this was just a footer, what would it look like, right? If this was a footer that was condensed, what would that look like? What's awesome is that all these permutations have been thought out very thoughtfully, and you can create templates and, customize them with, variables and images and all the whole 9 yards basically of whatever you would want to show up. So let's change this back to light mode. So I'm going to uncheck dark mode here, and it looks like we've got a problem where our text color is not showing because we used a dark background here. So let me actually make the background a dark gray, perhaps. I think gray is a little more subtle than just full on black background. So this is looking pretty good to me. We have the prices here as well. Let's see what else we can go and customize. So we have our packages here. I'm gonna leave this as is. You can see that we're using the default package with the proper names and package details. And we're using, you can see it's a little light here, but the placeholder is using variables. So it's using the total price. And you can actually use these variables yourself to go and adjust what this ends up looking like. Here we can also customize, the light mode and dark mode background colors. I'm going to change this to be maybe a green color, something that's a little more indicative of like something to select. Maybe we'll actually make it blue. I'll make the button green. So I actually really enjoy playing with all this stuff, especially the simplicity of the editor. I think it's incredibly well done and super intuitive. So we're going to change that there. And in dark mode, we'll maybe just keep it as is. Let's also come down here and let's change the footer. So specifically, I want to change the background of this call to action, I should say, not footer. So I'll make this like a bright green button, and I'll copy the hex here and I'll paste it in here as well. And pretty important, you also have your footer links available. So if you want to show the restore purchases, you can do that here. And you can also show links for your terms and conditions and privacy policy. We're just going to link to apple.com. These are required by the App Store to show these links on your screens where you do have subscriptions offered. But let's actually save this and let's see if it does show up. So we're trying to save. Looks like there's some validations error needed to fix before we can save these. Let's see what is not valid. Let's go through this and find out. So these links are the same. Perhaps we do need to change these. Let's see what else we might need to change here. Looks like we have paywall content is required for at least one language. That makes sense for localization. Alrighty, so let's see what we can do. So we have localization here. We have set it up for English. Okay, let's scroll it down. And let's see, we've got some images already set up here. We don't want a background image. For our main content, let's add some stuff in here. So let's add a title. So we're gonna say Bright Sky Weather Pro, and we'll say unlock daily forecasts and more. And let's try saving. Let's see if we do need to add some more stuff. Looks like there is some more validation, which is good since I clearly forgot some stuff here. So let's go into call to action. So our call to action here has continue. We've set up the color here. Should be good to go. I'll use the word continue again. Let me actually change it to subscribe. Alrighty. And our call to action here, whoops, looks like subscribe was supposed to be here. So for introductory offers, this is pretty cool actually. You can actually have this be different. So let's say if it was a free trial, it could be start free trial parentheses subscribe, something of that nature. So let's try saving this once more. All right, I suspect what we're needing to add is stuff in packages. Alrighty, so we've got here packages, required 2 items. So we've got monthly, and we also we want to bring in annually. So these are the 2 packages that are going to be added. Let's try saving. Let's see what else I did forget to bring in here. All right, so it's saying English United States has an error. Let's see what the error is. So let's go into main content. Don't see anything here. Looks like this is all properly filled out. Let's continue down. And then in packages, looks like we have a package name. So let's see what is the challenge here. So we have a default package. We're going to default the user to the yearly plan. We're going to say that's a better package. And here we're going to use the offer period. Okay, that makes sense. Package details. Okay, it's saying this is required. So let's say, let's change this to unlock daily weather with an exclamation mark. And it looks like this says package details for an introductory offer, which is irrelevant since we did not offer that. And what's cool on the right hand side here is I like that it shows you a bit of a live preview of what you're doing, so there's kind of less guesswork involved here. And let's save and we should be good to go. So let's see if I can just hit this without rerunning the app and get the paywall. It looks like it's using the placeholder, so let's build and run this again. And if I hit it, just like that, the beautiful paywall that we created shows up. And honestly, this is one of the most cool things that I think RevenueCat has introduced over the past N number of months and years that they've been building all their in-app purchase infrastructure. Let's change this to be dark mode and let's make sure everything takes. So this is exactly what we built over here that we were seeing in the live preview. Unlock daily forecasts and more. We've got monthly and annual. So let's actually build this out further to selectively hide our daily forecast section here. So let's actually think about how we would do that. So we need something in our IAP manager to go and check whether the user is actually subscribed. So we are going to import RevenueCat, and what I'll do inside of here is I'm going to create a function and say is subscribed, and this is going to give us a completion handler with a Boolean. You can do this in the async await fashion as well. And essentially off of the purchases SDK, you could actually request to get customer info with a callback. We get the info here as well as a error. We're gonna unwrap, I should say, the info and get their active subscriptions, else we'll return. And for now, let's just actually print out, we'll say their subscriptions is this, and this is a set of strings that are active. We're just gonna print it out for now. And the idea here is if the user has an active subscription, we'll show this, we'll set up a view model to show this, otherwise, we won't show it. And if you recall, in the weather view controller, we set up all these view models so we can call this in there. So we're gonna look for the weather view controller. By the way, I'm hitting Command-Shift-O to open up this file search window. It's pretty useful to navigate through projects. And we'll do all this jazz in get location. So once we've gotten the location, we're gonna fetch the weather. And once we have done that, what we'll want to do is we will want to create view models. So let's actually say self.create view models. We'll do this in another function. We'll say private func create view models. We'll paste that into here just to separate our code a little bit. So here we're passing in current weather, it looks like we're getting. So we'll say current weather will be an argument to this function. So here current weather should be passed in. Alrighty, so here we'll say current weather is current weather. And we also do need to import WeatherKit so we can leverage that framework. Let's make sure we build and don't have any build errors. Now, what we'll do here is we want to make sure that these two are definitely being added for our view models, current and hourly, but daily will be selective. So what I'll be able to do in here is essentially say that we want to update this daily only if the user is subscribed. So we'll say IAP manager shared is subscribed, and this is going to be subscribed, and we're going to say if subscribed, we want to append to this primary view model this particular array. And before we actually call this configure function, we're gonna basically be building this collection of view models. So let's say var view models will be this guy. It is not going to have this in here, and here we'll say view models.append. We're gonna want to append this into here. Let's make sure that's all working. It looks like we do have an error, so let's see what is going on here. All right, it looks like it can't actually append to view models, so let's find out why that is. So we're gonna say view models is an array, it needs a contextual type. So we're gonna say that this is a weather view model, like so. So it knows what this .daily, .hourly, daily jazz is. And once we've actually appended to the view model, what we want to do is we want to then say, hey view, go ahead and update yourself with this collection of view models. So in other words, our loading state will be a little bit longer since we do need to fetch the state of the user, whether they are subscribed or not, but this is how we are able to gate this. So let's give this a run and let's make sure our app is indeed still working. It looks like things are not loading here, so let's actually debug this together and see what is going on. What I suspect is going on is we're not actually calling the callback. So let's see where that is. So back in IAP manager, we're gonna say if subscription, let's actually do some line breaks when we print this out so we can see where on earth it's printing out. But essentially it's probably not working because we're not calling this callback here with true or false. So it looks like our set is empty here, which makes sense. So we're gonna say if subscriptions is empty, we're gonna say completion, false users not subscribed. Otherwise, we're gonna say completion, and we wanna basically check if subscription, subscriptions has something in it. So I guess a better way we can do this is just say this, right? So if this is empty, we will pass true. So we'll do the inverse of this. If this is empty, not empty, we know the user is subscribed. Otherwise, they are not subscribed. So let's give this a build and run. And we should be able to see our daily or our weather showing up, but it looks like we still are not able to see it. So let's see why that is. We'll selectively debug this together. So we'll go into weather view controller and let's see what's going on. So here we're creating view models. We're saying self.primary primary view configure with those view models. We should see all of this here, but I'm not seeing it. And I believe there is something going wrong here. So let's put a breakpoint in here and let's give this a build and run and let's see what's going on. Let's see if we hit that breakpoint. We should be hitting that breakpoint. All right, so we hit that breakpoint, which is good. We're saying IAP manager is subscribed. Let's come into here and run it again. We should hit that first breakpoint already, which is great. And then we're hitting, looks like we're not hitting that second breakpoint, which is why we're not able to configure the view. So let's see why that is. We're actually only configuring if the user is subscribed, which is of course not good. So what we'll want to do is actually configure this view with these view models first and foremost. And if the user is subscribed, then we'll actually do the configuration again. So let's try this one more time. We should see all this here, which is awesome. Now we're not seeing daily because we're not coming into this subscribed bit. So let's try to subscribe the user. We're gonna say we're gonna subscribe to the annual plan. Let me hit this, let's see what's gonna happen. All right, there is our sheet. Now keep in mind, we have this callback here with the customer info if it was purchased or restored. The appropriate thing that we should do in here is we basically should be refreshing the view here. So we'll say create this view model once more. And we'll do this after we successfully do this. Let me actually subscribe here. Alrighty, looks like this is successful. And let's see if we get anything here. So we should see purchased in here if I'm not mistaken. All right, so we see creation date. We see that something did occur. All right, looks like got a lot of logs in here. All right, purchased. Okay, so we got customer info here, which is this gigantic blob, which is awesome. Lots of information in here. Once we have actually purchased in the delegate functions here, we should actually tell this controller to dismiss itself. So we'll dismiss animated true in both the case of purchase and restoration. But let's give our app a build and run, and let's see if this daily section shows up. And boom, it does. Awesome. So we are subscribed, so we probably don't want to show this either here. So what we'll do is we only want to show that crown icon to users that are not already subscribed. So let's actually do this one more time. What we'll do in here is we are going to say, let's find the bit of code that is checking if the user is subscribed. So if the user is not subscribed, we are going to say dispatch queue main async, and we will set up that navigation button. It looks like it's yelling at me because we also need to specify that self there. And boom, we're not seeing that either. So let's actually try deleting the app. And what I'm going to do is, before we wrap up this video and series, is down in here, we've dismissed the controller, which is great. But the more interesting and important thing that we need to do is we want that view for the weather to automatically be updated. And the way we can go about doing that is by calling this create view model function. So we'll say here, create view model, and it wants the current weather. So we're going to say current weather. We are going to get this from the weather manager. So we're going to say guard let current weather will be weather manager shared. Weather manager shared. And we want to get the current weather. It looks like autocomplete's giving me a hard time today, which is okay. Alrighty, and in this case, what we should be able to do is when we call this create view model, it should create a new, it'll basically run all this again, and it'll create a new array, which should be inclusive of the daily view model. And when we tell our view to configure itself, it'll assign the view model, and it'll tell the collection view to reload. So it should be good to go. We should not need to do any more plumbing in our view. So let's give this a build and a run and see what happens. We need the weather location. Does that make sense? Alrighty, we're not subscribed clearly. Let's come up here and hit the crown. Maybe I'll go for monthly here. Let me get rid of all of this so we can see some logging. Alrighty, we want to purchase that. Awesome. this goes away, and boom, just like that, daily weather is unlocked. And if we come here, we should see purchased somewhere inside of our console. It looks like it is right over here actually. So purchase product fetcher, so it tells you some debug log information about RevenueCat. And one thing that I did notice is this is actually not going away. So the reason that's not going away is we only handled the case where if the user is not subscribed. When they are subscribed, what we'll do is we'll say navigation item, right bar button item. We're just gonna nil that out. In other words, once you've purchased it, you can't purchase it again, so it's silly to show that crown. And just like that, you have actually set up your in-app purchase flow with RevenueCat, not only handling the logic and the interaction with Apple to show, sheets for the transaction, but also the paywall, which is really exciting. Now over here in settings, we do have this upgrade option and these other options. I'm not going to hook this up in this video in the series because they're fairly self-explanatory. You can take the same logic that we implemented in the weather screen here, and we can do the same thing here for the upgrade to pro option. We did hook up a delegate to go and actually handle when the user taps on it. Once more, here in the editor, we can save our changes, we can update these changes, and even more interesting, you can actually create multiple paywalls, which is quite fascinating, and figure out what works best for your customers. So that is all I've got for you guys in this video and series. All the code will be made available for free on GitHub with this project. By all means, take a look at the new paywall beta features being rolled out by RevenueCat. Skim through the code, ask any questions, feel free to contribute to the project. Thanks so much for watching. Hit that like button before clicking away. We're almost at 100,000 subscribers, so consider subscribing if you're into app development, coding, iOS, Swift, the whole 9 yards. Connect on LinkedIn and all the socials. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.